Killing a single mosquito could mean one less bar of chocolate. Spider silk can be made into artificial tendons and ligaments. The genetic material in a giant spruce tree is 7 times that of a human. Nature's complex diversity is an endless source of knowledge. Today, let's dive into The 8 Master Lessons of Nature, a cross-disciplinary book on natural philosophy. A modern Walden, this book invites us into the natural world and teaches us to observe, listen, and connect with nature. Drawing on recent research from biology, medicine, chemistry, quantum physics, psychology, and philosophy, the author presents 8 lessons on living in harmony with nature and finding answers to a fulfilling life. In this video, you'll learn 8 natural principles to help you live more effectively and joyfully. With nature as a guide, you'll gain insights on how to connect with yourself and others. It's also a feast for the mind, offering a fusion of Eastern and Western philosophical thought. The book's author, Gary Ferguson, is a lecturer for the National Geographic Speaker Series and has authored 24 books on natural science. He has contributed to major publications like Vanity Fair, Orion, the Chicago Tribune, and the Los Angeles Times. Hello everyone, and welcome to Bookspark. This channel is all about sharing highlights from great books. We cover at least 3 new books every week, so be sure to subscribe. We've organized the full script into a downloadable document, so if you're interested, feel free to grab it via the link below. Let's get started with The 8 Master Lessons of Nature. This is a book that will leave you feeling truly refreshed. Its core theme explores what humanity can learn from nature. The author has spent his life immersed in the natural world as a naturalist, almost living outdoors, continuously observing plants and animals. He distilled these experiences into 8 key lessons that we can learn from the natural world. Some people have called this book a modern version of Walden, the famous work by Thoreau. As we go through the book, I'll be reading many original excerpts because the writing is so beautiful. Let's begin with an intriguing metaphor. At one point, the author met an old man who owned a very old horse. The horse was slow and no longer fit for races, yet the old man still brought it to every race, where it consistently came in last place. Confused, someone asked the old man, "Why do you keep entering this horse in races? It's not a racehorse anymore. Isn't that embarrassing for it, always coming in last?" The old man smiled, gently stroking his horse, and said, "It loves being part of the group." The horse didn't care about winning. It simply enjoyed being part of the race, running alongside the other horses. This metaphor is key to understanding our relationship with nature. As humans, we're often too focused on winning, on achieving success and results. But the real joy comes from simply being a part of nature, experiencing the sense of belonging. Because the author is a natural scientist, his goal is to reveal the workings of nature in a scientific way, to help us understand what nature can truly teach us. The first lesson from nature is called Embracing the Unknown. I've talked about uncertainty in many books before, yet most people still struggle to accept it. We crave certainty, but in reality, embracing the unknown is how nature operates. Let's listen to some remarkable facts. We are fortunate to live in a time of great scientific surprises. Did you know that spiders can fly using the electrons in the atmosphere? Doesn't that excite you? Spiders can use electrons to fly. They balance on their hind legs, release silk into the air, and the negative charge of the silk repels the surrounding negatively charged air, allowing them to take off into the sky. Or how about this? The atoms that make up your body are 99.9999% empty space. If you could remove that space, your actual physical body, your substance, would shrink down to a size so small it would be invisible. If we could remove the empty space from every human on Earth, the remaining matter would fit into a sugar cube. Isn't that incredible? Take a moment to consider that every day as you walk along the street, your shoes never really touch the ground. The electrons in your shoes repel the electrons in the pavement, meaning you're floating above the surface, not firmly planted on the ground. You're hovering. If we could observe things at the level of electrons, we'd realize that we are walking on air, separated by the smallest of gaps. Why does the author tell us this? Because by learning more about the natural world, we open ourselves to the wonders of existence, things that are vastly different from what we've always believed. In nature, everything is constantly changing, and we can learn to embrace this flux. The author suggests that we engage all our senses when experiencing nature. He offers a few examples. While not many of us may have wandered deep into the Rocky Mountains, we can listen to his impressions. Back in the 1970s, when I roamed freely through the wilderness of the Rocky Mountains, I found myself constantly stopping, closing my eyes, and listening to the wind. In fact, I became a connoisseur of wind. The ponderosa pine murmured softly. The Douglas fir sighed deeply, with a sound like ocean waves. The aspen leaves rustled like a flowing stream. The sound of the alder trees was distinct, like a sudden downpour. The shrubs in the lowlands rustled sharply, while the wild grasses whispered contentedly. On the fringes of the tundra, near the world's summit, I heard the performance of the subalpine fir, the wind tearing through the exposed branches, while those in the shelter twisted and bent with a softer sound. Then I began to cultivate my sense of touch. By the creek, the air felt cool and moist against my skin. Sunlight fell warmly on my eyelids. I ran my fingers along the cracked bark of an old oak tree, feeling the smooth, powdery bark of aspens and birch. There are countless smells in nature. The bark of ponderosa pines emits a vanilla scent. The fragrance of evening primroses and mountain flowers lingers in the air. Pine needles have a peppery aroma. The scent of the grasslands after rain is intoxicating. The leaves of roses, sweet clover, and dandelions each have their own unique smell. Close your eyes, and all these aromas rush in, much like the scent of fresh coffee or cinnamon rolls on a Sunday morning. When we step into nature, we can engage all our senses, sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch, to fully experience the richness it offers. Where do we humans falter? Why do we need to learn from nature to embrace the unknown? Because humans have a compulsion to categorize. Since ancient times, we've been hardwired to quickly categorize the world around us, to conserve brain energy. We label things as useful or not, dangerous or safe, friend or foe, capable or incapable. This habit of quickly dividing things into categories helps reduce cognitive load, but it also makes our worldview too binary, too rigid. Nature shows us how to break free from this binary mindset. When we walk into the forest, we instinctively label deer, eagles, and strawberries as good, while flies and mosquitoes are considered bad. But any in-depth exploration, even if it doesn't make us love insects, at least reveals a greater sense of change. Flies are primary pollinators for many plants, including orchids and trilliums. As decomposers, they are veritable masters of bringing life from death. They also consume many aphids and moth larvae, so it's no exaggeration to say that flies play a crucial role in global crop yields. And then there are mosquitoes, which sustain fish, lizards, birds, salamanders, and countless other creatures. In fact, the pesky midges, relatives of mosquitoes, are the primary pollinators of the cacao tree. Yes, those small mosquitoes are essential for chocolate production. Killing a mosquito might mean, whap, there goes another chocolate bar. Hummingbirds are good, while crows are bad. Chipmunks are cute, while rats are pests. But when you take a closer look at nature's masterpiece, you realize these distinctions are nonsense. No wonder ancient civilizations long ago recognized that opposing concepts like good versus bad, pets versus beasts, are ultimately a drain on one's spirit. Nature has other ways of rejecting these binary divisions. The vast majority of the plants that beautify our planet are hermaphroditic. We naturally think of everything being divided into male and female, but most plants are both. The grass in your yard, lilies, roses, squash, corn, and cucumbers are all dual-sexed. A staggering variety of fish, jellyfish, and shellfish, like limpets, can change their sex depending on what their population needs. In these cases, the rigid binary of male versus female simply collapses. Like many of our other mistaken beliefs, binary thinking adds yet another brick to the wall separating us from the world. To break free from binary thinking, the best way is to step into nature and observe it. This is the first lesson, learning to embrace the unknown. Stop dividing the world into binaries and allow your life to become a little wilder. The second lesson is interdependence. Humans have always harbored a sense of superiority. Ever since Homo sapiens came to dominate the earth, we've had this inflated sense of superiority, thinking that humans are the pinnacle of life and that the world was created for us. But in this, we ignore the web of connections, not just the connections between people, but the entire web of nature. The author notes, "We now know that the genome of conifers is more vast and complex than almost any other life form on Earth. So, as animals, we shouldn't be too proud. Our genetic system is nowhere near as complex as that of a conifer. Moreover, plants have incredibly intelligent systems, which might surprise us. For example, imagine you're walking through a forest and spot a small sapling growing amidst towering trees that block the sunlight. Would you worry that this sapling won't survive without sunlight? Well, it can still thrive. How? In these forests, the tree's roots are intertwined, connected by a completely different life form, the mycorrhizal fungi. For millions of years, trees and fungi have been interdependent, evolving together in a mutually beneficial relationship, although fungi appeared on Earth about 100 million years before trees. Some fungi's above-ground structures can grow as tall as 25 feet and several feet wide, looking very much like tree trunks. Growing beneath the larger trees, these fungi extend their delicate, thread-like filaments into the tree's roots, extracting sugars produced through photosynthesis. In return, the trees use the fungal network to absorb essential nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus that would otherwise be unattainable. Once this fungal network is established among the roots, it activates a defensive response, which is like triggering the tree's immune system, akin to how we get flu shots, to boost its resistance. Beyond this, trees communicate with each other through this underground network, helping one another. Tree by tree, forest by forest, this is how the natural community works. If a sapling lacks sufficient sunlight and is struggling to survive, it might be lacking carbon and unable to grow. Thankfully, the fungal network sends out signals, and stronger trees, having recognized the issue, take action, gradually transferring excess carbon and nutrients to the sapling through the network. There was once a tree on the forest's edge that seemed to be suffering from blight. Almost certainly, this tree communicated with the entire forest through the fungal network, sending chemical signals that alerted the other trees to activate their defenses, dramatically reducing the chances of the disease spreading throughout the forest. So, sometimes when I walk through a forest and notice a branch withering, while the rest of the tree and surrounding trees remain healthy, I realize it's because they have their own communication network, warning the others to stay clear and stop the disease in its tracks. For millions of years, trees and plants have existed not in competition, but in tight-knit cooperation, thriving as a community. And humanity is a part of this community. As we walk along forest paths, the trees and small plants at our feet constantly release an antibacterial compound called phytoncide. Although invisible, it's in every breath we take. Once it reaches our lungs, it enters the arteries via specific nerve cells, lowering our heart rate and blood pressure. Some of it gets absorbed by lymph nodes, rapidly boosting the immune system. Other portions are sent to the hypothalamus, supporting the efficient functioning of vital organs. Remember this: the less greenery there is around us, the higher the risk of illness and death. The author also talks about his admiration for Thich Nhat Hanh. In one of his classes in Plum Village, France, Thich Nhat Hanh held up a sheet of paper and asked the students, "What do you see on this sheet of paper?" The students answered, "It's just a sheet of paper." Thich Nhat Hanh replied, "If you look closely, you can see the clouds, the streams, the trees, the loggers, and the bread they ate, the wheat they harvested, and the machinery they used to plant the crops. All of these things combined to create this sheet of paper. In other words, through this sheet of paper, you can see the entire world." This is the kind of education he offered. He believed that the world is interconnected and that everything is interdependent. When we learned about evolution, there was a phrase we all came across: survival of the fittest. This phrase has misled us, making us think that only through competition can we survive. We assume that survival of the fittest means we've outcompeted many other species, and that's why we're still here. But in reality, the core of survival of the fittest is survival through cooperation. Take elk, for example. During mating season, the male elk often fight each other, clashing with their antlers. But as the author points out, it's not always the strongest elk that wins mating rights. In fact, the strongest elk often die. Their excessive competitiveness drives them mad. They keep attacking and don't stop. Sometimes they even attack humans, and in American forests, elk are responsible for more traffic accidents than any other animal. Their antlers are so large that they can flip over cars in collisions. So, it's not the most aggressive elk that survives. It's the ones that know when to control their temper, when to back off, and when to focus on mating that survive. This teaches us that survival of the fittest is about cooperation, not ruthless competition. Moreover, the scientific world is gradually proving this. One of the most significant developments supporting this is quantum mechanics. The author says, "It has taken the scientific community over 100 years to shake off the old belief in rigid objectivity. When quantum mechanics emerged, it shattered the deeply ingrained theory that nature can be dissected and fully controlled through objective observation. We used to think that every object could be broken down into distinct modules, and each module could be continuously optimized. But quantum mechanics proved that wrong. It also showed that the predictions of classical physics and mathematics were not infallible. At the time, this was nothing short of revolutionary. One of the most important concepts here is demonstrated by the double-slit experiment, an experiment showing the wave-particle duality of light and electrons. We discussed this when we talked about Einstein. His life and universe. The double-slit experiment showed the phenomenon of wave-particle duality, meaning that light exhibits both wave-like and particle-like properties depending on how we choose to observe it. This is something that defies common sense. It's impossible to clearly separate everything in nature. Today, it's virtually impossible to clearly define what belongs solely to you, what is uniquely yours, and what isn't. We can't precisely distinguish what belongs to a tortoise, what belongs to a zebra, or even what belongs to bacteria. Simply put, the relationship between you and nature is, you are in me, and I am in you. This interconnectedness defines our relationship with the natural world. Everything is interdependent, and humans are no exception. We are all in this together. Poet Walt Whitman, who was also an avid nature walker, shared a similar philosophy. Whitman encouraged people to walk through orchards or forests, to sit and meditate with their silent natural companions. When you're weary of business, politics, feasts, and even love, and find that none of these bring lasting happiness, What's left? Only nature. That's the advice Whitman gave to us. The author says, 25 years later, I'm more convinced than ever that nature has the power to help us temporarily escape from the burden of narcissism. When I first arrived in the valley, I was one of those hikers who counted my steps, marveled at my stamina, and mentally wrote my own story. Have you ever gone hiking only to see people posting their GPS-tracked stats afterwards? It shows how much we care about our own performance rather than truly appreciating nature. That's called narcissism. But the gentle curves of the Beckler Valley, the delicate colors of the meadows, and the graceful swimming of beavers and muskrats invigorated me. I lost myself in the moment and became one with nature, feeling the countless reliable connections it offers. This unbounded reality allows you to safely step outside the narrow confines of your own life, open your heart, and embrace a world far broader than usual, even if only for a short while. This is the second lesson, interdependence. The third lesson is biodiversity. When the author was 21, he worked as an intern for the Forest Service. His supervisor, a retired veteran who had a deep love for nature, took him on a long trek to a high mountain meadow one day. After hiking through the woods for a long distance, they finally reached an open grassland, and the author was suddenly struck by the beauty of the field, which was filled with flowers of all colors. I'll read you a list of the flowers because it's stunning. The sloping hillside was covered in wildflowers, columbines, geraniums, buttercups, cinquefoils, paintbrush, hyacinths, penstemons, three-flowered avon, and monkey flowers. It was the most vivid carpet I had ever seen. We stood there side by side in silence for a long time. It felt like walking into a painting by Monet. Finally, Chuck began a Socratic dialogue, asking a series of patient questions. So, Gary, why are there so many different types of flowers here? Well, I answered without thinking, because the soil, moisture, and sunlight here support many species. True, but why not just one or two species? I was stumped. Think about it. What might threaten this area? Disease, I said cautiously. Insect infestations, drought. Okay, let's assume a major drought hits. What will happen to this meadow? Some of the plants will die. Why not all of them? Because some plants have deeper roots, and maybe they'll survive. Others might have waxy leaves that can retain water. Good. If they survive, what's the benefit? Well, this is a steep slope, so the more developed the plant's roots are, the less soil erosion there will be. He nodded, but wasn't fully satisfied. What else? A large horsefly landed on my face, and I shooed it away. That one, Chuck said with a grin. The fly. Even though you didn't say it, I'll help you out. If the plants survive, then the flies will buzz around, and that means the butterflies will come too. And elk? What are you getting at? I stumbled. Well, different flowers have different ways of surviving, so when one fails, another thrives. And what else? If they survive, the whole system survives. You're saying nature always has a way to adapt. I nodded. That was the point. He took a deep breath, and so did I. Do you now understand why nature needs so many different species? It's because there is always room to adapt, which ties into the concept of anti-fragility we've discussed before. When we lose diversity, we become increasingly fragile. The animal kingdom is the same. Behavioral and personality diversity within a species is beneficial to the group. For example, some bees dash straight to the first flower they see. Some bees are impulsive, stopping at every flower they encounter to gather pollen. But others are more cautious, spending time evaluating the flower first. Both types of bees contribute to the overall health of the hive. Though they collect pollen in different ways, their combined efforts sustain the colony. Remember, humans are one of the most vulnerable species. Think about it. 30,000 years ago, there were at least 4 species of humans similar to us, and now only one remains. That's us, Homo sapiens. Back then, Neanderthals and other human species existed, but they are now extinct. Humans often believe we are protecting other animals and making efforts to preserve the environment, but in reality, humans are not at less risk than other species. Imagine if your household were to lose power for an extended period. What would happen? Our dependence on external conditions is much higher than that of animals. Conversely, bacteria and viruses have been around for millions of years and continue to thrive, highlighting the vast impact of different forms of diversity. Humans need diversity because it protects us culturally. The author mentions participating in psychological studies and discovered that, for example, in jury systems, a mix of black and white jurors leads to more accurate verdicts than all black or all white juries. Moreover, research papers written by teams with diverse backgrounds tend to be cited more often, as ideas from different perspectives provide a more thorough analysis. Francis Bacon, the English philosopher and writer of the Renaissance period, once said in 1620, "It is a dangerous thing for universal truths to be accepted too quickly. If we reach consensus too easily, that consensus might ultimately cause harm." Recently, a study led by Dr. Arlene Geronimus at the University of Michigan found that Black women who experience racial discrimination suffer from mild chronic inflammation, increasing their risk for serious illnesses like diabetes and heart disease. Clearly, isolating oneself in an echo chamber not only deprives one of others' strengths, but also jeopardizes collective human well-being. No race, group, or class should place itself above others. When you believe you are superior or more important, you not only harm others, but also damage yourself. To be frank, this important lesson from nature, the idea that the more diverse an ecosystem is, the stronger it becomes, is not easy to grasp. We may feel that we are open to diversity, but then we fall into a trap. We think that connecting with others means making them more like ourselves. This statement echoes what Bacon meant by saying, "It is a dangerous thing for universal truths to be accepted too quickly." It reflects a tragic flaw in human history. What is a tragic flaw? In Greek tragedies, every hero has a weakness that, while seemingly small at first, ultimately leads to the catastrophe that results in their death or the suffering of their loved ones. This flaw is the tragic flaw. For humans, our cultural narcissism, the desire to make others like us, is our tragic flaw. This is the third lesson, learning to embrace diversity from nature. On a large scale, this involves diversity in races and species. On a smaller scale, it applies to diversity in workplaces and even within families. These are the teachings and wisdom nature offers us. The fourth lesson is gender equality. While observing elephants, the author discovered that elephant herds led by older female elephants tend to be safer. For example, in the Serengeti, during the dry season, elephants must decide whether to embark on long migrations in search of water, a decision that consumes a lot of energy. If there is water nearby, they can avoid migrating. Researchers have found that older female elephants are often the most accurate in making these judgments. However, these matriarchs face significant challenges, primarily due to poaching for their valuable tusks. The older the elephant, the more valuable its tusks, making them frequent targets for hunters, which saddens scientists deeply. Females not only have the duty of reproduction, but also play leadership roles. This is true in many species. In addition to elephants, species like meerkats and whales exhibit similar behavior. The role of female mammals goes far beyond mere reproduction. They are also responsible for managing complex relationships that involve life and death. Anyone who has ventured deep into jungles, deserts, coastlines, seas, or grasslands knows that survival doesn't happen any other way. When comparing males and females in nature, one of the most prominent traits of female animals is their ability to form alliances and collaborate. Throughout human history, many cultures have featured goddesses in their mythology. In Western culture, there's Gaia, the goddess of the earth. In Chinese mythology, there's Nuwa, the creator of humankind. These are all female deities. When we look to nature for guidance, we find that only when we restore females to their rightful place alongside males can we achieve a balanced, vibrant, and healthy life. Lesson 5. Learning to respect animals. On the Yellowstone Plains, there was a pack of wolves led by an alpha male called Old Blue, named so by biologists who observed the pack, and his mate, referred to as 14. Old Blue had aged considerably, and since the wolves were under scientific observation, the researchers could track their daily movements. They noticed that Old Blue was running slower and often couldn't keep up with the pack when they hunted. Do you know what the wolf pack did? The younger wolves would bite open the prey because Old Blue's teeth had weakened with age, and he could no longer tear through the hide of a deer. The young wolves would tear open the hide but refrain from eating, allowing Old Blue to feed first on the organs and meat. The pack showed tremendous respect for its elder. Old Blue was always at the back of the group because he could no longer keep pace. One day, Old Blue passed away, and shortly after, 14 disappeared. The scientists hurriedly searched for her, wondering where she had gone. They discovered that she had been running farther and farther away, stopping occasionally, howling, and then continuing to run. The observers were moved to tears. They concluded without a doubt that she had run away due to overwhelming grief. There has long been criticism of anthropomorphism. For example, in The Life of Pi, Pi's father tells him, "It's a tiger. It has no emotions. What you perceive as feelings in its eyes is simply your projection." But the author of this book argues that anthropomorphism is not as misguided as we might think. Animals, he believes, possess a wide range of emotions, a lesson taught to him by an old Native American chief. The author once asked the chief, "Do you think anthropomorphism is accurate?" The chief responded, "Anthropomorphism? It's not that animals are learning from us, it's that we are learning from them." His perspective was the opposite of the norm. Humans appeared on Earth much later than animals, and we are the ones learning from their emotional lives. For instance, in 2004, an elephant named Tina passed away at an elephant sanctuary in central Tennessee. She was a beloved 34-year-old Asian elephant. After she died, her 3 closest elephant friends gathered around her enclosure, touching her body with their trunks. This behavior, common among wild elephants, is their way of mourning. The sanctuary's veterinarians conducted an autopsy and carefully buried her body. The next day, after Tina had already been buried, the other elephants broke their usual habit of keeping distance, standing shoulder to shoulder, staring at Tina's grave. Elephants usually keep a lot of physical space between them, but when they came to pay their respects at Tina's grave, they stood close together, much like people do in a church during a funeral. Tina's best friend, Sissy, brought her favorite toy, a car tire, and left it on her grave. Reading this passage, I felt a deep emotional jolt. The fact that an elephant would leave a cherished toy on a friend's grave is a powerful testament to their emotional capacity. While observing the wolf pack in Yellowstone, researchers saw that wolves at play are no different from humans. They watched as wolves, young and old, climbed to the top of a snow-covered hill and then slid back down as if they were playing on a slide. They would roll down the hill, then race back up to slide down again, old and young wolves together, happily enjoying themselves. The animal world is filled with rich emotions, and many animals also have their own languages. Some animals even use tools. Humanity's arrogance and neglect of animals stem from our own hubris. We are too proud to closely observe them. We also know that certain animals establish and maintain complex traditions within their families and kin groups, much like humans who develop rituals to enhance identity and belonging. Whales and dolphins in specific regions have unique communication methods, with over 20 distinct greeting phrases and other interactive behaviors identified so far. Dolphins use unique whistles to indicate their identity, essentially telling us their names. Animals are highly intelligent. For example, elephants are known for their intelligence, solidarity, composure, and patience. Their memory is incredibly long, allowing them to remember things for a lifetime. Elephants don't get angry easily, but once provoked, they may take days to retaliate. This is because the neural connections in their brains can be more complex than those in humans. Crows are capable of understanding cause and effect. Remember the story of the crow and the water jar we heard as children? It's based on real behavior. Crows actually grasp cause and effect relationships. You'll often see videos online of crows teasing other birds or even monkeys and dogs. Many dogs are capable of simple math, such as basic addition and subtraction, which they can be trained to perform. Animals possess a wealth of emotions and have an intelligence that can often surprise us. Recognizing the connection between humans and animals can bring us peace of mind. Chasing after a fleeting glimpse of a white-tailed deer in the woods, watching birds forage outside your window, making eye contact with a dog, or scratching a cat behind the ears, these are sacred connections between us and them. Have you ever fed a stray cat? If you have, you'll know the joy of having a stray trust you enough to stay near your feet and eat the food you provide. This kind of happiness triggers the release of endorphins, fills you with love, and benefits your body. Humans and animals should have more of these connections. Animals struggle to survive in harsh and unpredictable environments, just as we do. Respecting animals means cultivating love not just for family, friends, neighbors, and country, but for all life. Love, pride in our interdependence, does not mean saving one species, but saving all of them. Wolves, elephants, dolphins, whales, mallards, cows, and pigs can all guide us. You will undoubtedly feel their profound impact. This is the 5th lesson: respect for animals. Lesson 6 is truly remarkable and took me by surprise. It's called efficiency above all. We often think that humans are the most efficient creatures, but nature operates at an efficiency level far beyond ours. The amount of energy the sun shines on the earth in just 1.5 hours is equivalent to the total energy generated by all human energy sources combined: oil, coal, wind, and so on. Nature has always emphasized efficiency, which may sound a bit perplexing. With such an abundance of energy, why is efficiency still so important? If just 1.5 hours of sunlight can provide that much energy, why does nature need to be so efficient? Every leaf on a tree is refined down to the subatomic level to ensure that each tiny pore absorbs as much sunlight as possible. The biological functions of every living organism run at peak efficiency, a level that physicists, architects, and design engineers can only dream of. In fact, cutting-edge technology is mimicking nature's efficiency, whether in high-speed trains, vaccines, water filters, or wind turbines. You know the hexagonal shape of a honeycomb? It's designed that way to conserve energy, using the least amount of material while maximizing internal space. How do bees know this? We don't know, but nature's efficiency is magical. The core principles are threefold: harmony, balance, and rhythm. Nature cares about these 3 things, and they all involve energy. For instance, harmony can be seen as going with the flow without resistance or opposition. A migrating wild duck won't battle headwinds to the point of exhaustion, but will fold its wings and wait for better weather. Balance can be understood as the equalization of energy intake and output. The same duck, after feeding, will mobilize every cell in preparation for the next energy-intensive flight. Finally, rhythm refers to the natural cycles of our lives, daily, seasonal, and every other pattern of alternating between vigorous activity and restful recuperation. Bears, for example, reduce their metabolism and hibernate through food-scarce freezing winters, sleeping until spring arrives. There's an especially interesting animal, the sloth, which many of you may remember from Zootopia, where the sloth DMV worker moved in hilariously slow motion. This depiction isn't exaggerated. Sloths really do move that slowly in the wild, but the design behind their slowness is marvelously intricate. Let me explain. In Central and South America, two-toed and three-toed sloths mastered the balance between leaf consumption and energy expenditure millions of years ago. Sloths are lazy and prefer not to hunt, so they only eat leaves. But leaves provide very limited energy and cannot sustain their large bodies. They're surrounded by leaves, so there's plenty of food, but it's not very nutritious. This presents a problem. So what do? First, they hang upside down from tree branches, embedding themselves in their food supply. This evolutionary outcome conserves energy. It's easier to hang from a branch than to stand upright and balance while looking for food. Second, their perfect narrow shoulders and long arms allow them to hang in one spot for long periods, right where food is within arm's reach. Sloths also lower their body temperature significantly, reducing their calorie requirements. While most mammals, including humans, maintain a steady body temperature of around 37 degrees Celsius. Unless they're sick, sloths can adjust their temperature between 23 degrees Celsius and 34 degrees Celsius as needed. And yes, 23 degrees Celsius is quite cold, which is why sloths live in tropical jungles and often sunbathe at the treetops to stay warm. When it's time to sleep, they curl up into a ball in the fork of a tree, conserving body heat, yet another energy-saving strategy. And finally, let's talk about their famous slow motion. Yes, sloths do everything slowly. It's all about conserving energy. They take an entire month to digest one meal, which is incredibly slow. But after each digestion, their bowel movement, which happens only once a week, results in a weight loss of at least 30% of their body mass. Isn't that amusing? Sloths move so slowly because they want to conserve energy. Unlike monkeys that are busy running around and even stealing food from humans, sloths simply hang around, digest their meals slowly, and only poop once a week, losing 30% of their body weight in the process. Humans, too, need to learn how to conserve energy. So how can we do that? The author suggests practicing contemplation, which is beneficial to health. If you regularly engage in quiet reflection in nature, it improves your well-being. On the flip side, anger, frustration, and overthinking make us vulnerable. Spending too much energy on being upset, ruminating on past events, or harboring grudges weakens us physically and mentally. One of the most important ways humans can reconnect with nature is by letting go of obsessive thoughts, not conjuring problems where none exist, and avoiding unnecessary suspicion. Rather than yielding to the internal frenzy that distracts us from what truly matters, we should face things with calm and grace, allowing our natural state of mind to become peaceful and free. Nature's most significant gift to us is helping us transcend inner conflict, rise above ourselves, and experience a broader world. Nature induces what psychologists call soft fascination, reducing the mental fatigue that comes from our constant focus on everyday life. It reawakens our senses and consciousness, enabling us to work with renewed focus and clarity. If you've ever experienced forest bathing, spending time in a dense forest, you know that when you leave, you feel rejuvenated and refreshed. Human societies are also increasingly driven by efficiency. But to truly achieve greater efficiency in our social lives, it's essential to know how to collaborate with others. Ancient Chinese wisdom often speaks of the concept of give and take. Only by giving can you receive. By losing something or through exchange, you gain new energy. The driving force behind this principle is gratitude. When you can feel gratitude for society, for the people around you, and for the interdependent natural world, you're more inclined to engage in acts of giving and receiving. People who are kind to others tend to be kinder to themselves. If someone can be good to others, they can also be good to themselves. So being kind to others helps you treat yourself better as well. For us humans, the key words to improve efficiency are exactly the same as those in nature, which we just discussed: harmony, balance, rhythm. Once you understand these, you'll realize that nature is all about efficiency, and nature's methods of enhancing efficiency far surpass ours. What nature offers us, which we have yet to fully understand, is immensely complex. We should learn from nature how to enhance our energy and reduce consumption. The best way to increase energy and decrease energy consumption is through kindness, a willingness to share, and a desire to do good for others. Lesson 7. Rebirth from fire. The author shares that in 1988, there was a massive wildfire in Yellowstone National Park, one of the largest in history. After the fire, the landscape was a horrifying, desolate sight, all blackened. Forests' ability to revive after wildfires is partly due to their disaster resilience strategies. In their growth phase, American yellow pines shed their lower branches, preventing fire from climbing up to the crown like a ladder. Over thousands of years, they've adapted to fires by developing thicker bark to protect their precious cambium from extreme heat. Mature yellow pine forests have wide tree spacing, which helps conserve water and hinders the spread of fires. Early explorers of North America's West fell in love with these fire-modified yellow pine forests. The open woods allowed sunlight to filter through, and wagons could travel easily among the trees. This explains why forests don't become overgrown and are so spacious, allowing people to navigate through them, because the fire has created these gaps. When dramatic changes occur, such as after a wildfire, we can assess the system's resilience by examining what's left behind. Are the seeds that nurture new life protected? For example, the seeds of the American lodgepole pine only emerge from their cones when exposed to fire, making them one of the first species to sprout in the ashes. Surprisingly, without fire, these seeds wouldn't be released. It's only after a fire that they can take root and grow. Is the soil still rich and fertile? Are bees and flies still buzzing around to pollinate the new seedlings? Is the groundwater still intact? When nature is well prepared for a comeback, it will recover and thrive at lightning speed. The ecosystem doesn't just survive, it thrives. For thousands of years, plants, insects, birds, and mammals have perfected the art of turning disaster into opportunity. Nutrients stored in the trees and land are released into the soil as ash, producing an incredibly fertile environment. This resilience is far superior to what humans can achieve. Some people, when faced with a setback in life, may never fully recover, but nature doesn't suffer from this kind of despair. After a wildfire, the trees grow taller, the mushrooms bigger, and the moss thicker. This is the power of nature. So, what can we learn from this in our own lives? The author says, "I've learned life lessons from wildfires. Because of the instability in my family life before adulthood, I was conditioned to interpret every sign of tension as a threat. Even minor disagreements felt like sparks that needed to be extinguished as quickly as possible. I thought I had everything under control, but in my haste, I snuffed out useful fires. Over time, this stifled interaction, and eventually, no one wanted to listen to me or respect me. These deep-seated subconscious habits limited my future relationships. Suppressing small fires for too long eventually leads to a major blaze. But that was just the beginning of my understanding. I started to dig deeper into my own nature, uncovering the core qualities that gave me strength. I began gathering healthy seeds and sowing them after each problem, allowing them to grow. I realized that nature's rebirth after fire is a collective process, a full display of interdependence, so I knew I had to nurture my social connections and rely on others when disaster struck. Every day, we cautiously try to ensure our lives are smooth, without sparks, and if any arise, we rush to extinguish them to keep life moving safely. But in reality, these small challenges, when allowed to emerge, can increase our resilience and offer new possibilities for growth. And you must understand the importance of companions. Nature can be reborn from fire because it is so diverse. Our social systems should also be built to be richer, and we must be kind to those around us. The author also touches on PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, where individuals who have experienced significant trauma develop a condition called bottom-heavy brain syndrome. This syndrome manifests as constant tension and an overreaction to stimuli. Ang Lee's film Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk depicts this condition, where a soldier returning from war nearly strangles someone because he couldn't control his reaction, a symptom of bottom-heavy brain. So, what should we do? We should learn from nature. Nature's recovery happens gradually, layer by layer, from seeds to water to soil to sunlight, one step at a time. Similarly, a person's recovery should also be gradual. For example, first, learn to soothe fear. Find social support, such as a therapist. Use physical exercise to regulate neurotransmitters in the body. Then improve nutrition. And finally, learn to use mindfulness to focus attention and restore a natural rhythm to life. These processes mirror nature's lessons. This is Lesson 7, learning how to rise from the ashes, just as nature does. The final lesson, learning the value of elders. How do elders impart wisdom? The author explains how dolphins teach their young to catch fish, specifically sand perch. Sand perch are difficult to catch because they hide in the sand, making them nearly invisible. A mother dolphin will spend a great deal of effort teaching her young how to catch sand perch. Her method is to find a large sponge, tear off a piece, and carry it in her mouth. She then dives down and uses the sponge like a bulldozer, pushing up the sand. After pushing for a while, several sand perch will dart out, trying to escape. The dolphin will surface to breathe, because dolphins are mammals, then dive back in to enjoy the catch. This is how dolphins pass on their knowledge day after day, teaching their offspring how to survive in the natural world. Do you know meerkats? They're very cute animals. You can see them on nature documentaries. One of meerkats' favorite foods is scorpions, which are venomous, but meerkats don't get stung thanks to a special technique. The older meerkats patiently teach the younger ones how to safely eat scorpions without getting stung. In every meerkat clan, these older individuals are incredibly wise and valuable. There was once a tragic case involving a group of elephants without elders. For some reason, all the older elephants in this group had died, leaving only the younger ones to roam the plains. Over the course of 10 years, these young elephants killed more than 100 rhinos. Usually, elephants don't attack rhinos unless provoked, even though they are stronger. But this group of elephants, like a gang of rebellious teenagers, was deliberately causing chaos and killing rhinos. Without any elders or guidance, no parents, no leaders, their behavior became destructive. In nature, older animals and plants possess wisdom. It's not just animals, even trees exhibit this. For example, old trees observe the younger trees through fungal networks, monitoring what nutrients or water they need, and they distribute resources accordingly. Recently, these old trees have started talking to us. Climate scientists are using new techniques to extract core samples from redwoods without harming the trees. And by studying these cores, they can estimate cloud cover during a particular summer centuries ago. One day, we may gather enough data to estimate the climate from 1,000 years ago. Interestingly, they found that fog patterns are closely tied to sea surface temperatures. If we can predict fog levels during summer, we can better analyze ocean currents and gain further insight into how human activities affect climate change. These massive, ancient redwoods hold nature's secrets, allowing us to study climate patterns from 1,000 years ago. The author also shares a story about an elderly neighbor, Pearl. Pearl was not wealthy, and in her 90s, the author visited her. Despite her modest means, she generously offered him plenty of food because he had grown up alongside her, and they had a close relationship. The author reflected, "The pressures of life, poverty, and hardship forced Pearl to pay close attention to the world around her. Attention became a survival skill. She also turned this attention toward nature, finding solace and beauty in it, which gave her the strength to carry on. Sitting on her porch one summer day, I realized something else. Nature continuously nourished her gratitude. Every spring, she would watch the tender sprouts emerge in her backyard garden. When I visited that year, it was the 90th time she had seen those sprouts break through the soil. Those long, gentle summers gave her energy. Fish in Lake Wawasee seemed as though they would jump right into her boat. To me, Pearl shone brightly because nature had taught her to be this way. Pearl passed away peacefully at 102, but she left a lasting light in my heart. She helped me resist the temptations of self-absorption, reminding me not to get lost in my own narrative, but instead to observe and reflect. This is the value that elders offer us. These older individuals are the repositories of human experience, culture, and civilization. Nature honors elders, recognizing the wisdom they carry, and we humans should learn this lesson as well. This is the 8th and final lesson. Now that we've gone through all 8 lessons, I'd like to close with the author's words. Beauty is close at hand, within reach. On a summer afternoon, standing under an old maple tree, if you suddenly realize there's nothing you need to do, no problems to solve, no plans to make, only sunlight, shade, and the sound of the breeze through the leaves, you'll feel beauty. It's an effortless, yet extraordinary exchange. You exhale the tree's nourishment, and it gives you the oxygen you need. The world gives to you, and you give back to the world. I hope that after hearing about this book, you'll be inspired to spend more time in nature. If you feel a desire to connect more deeply with the natural world, then the book has fulfilled its purpose. And if you also take it a step further, learning the 8 lessons nature teaches us, embracing the unknown, interdependence, biodiversity, gender equality, respecting animals, prioritizing efficiency, rebirth from fire, and the value of elders, then this book will hold even greater meaning.